Receiving order, please correct, X4315 heavy.
Self-Destruct sequence activated.
And what's going on, everybody? This is Ron Clay here, and welcome to another edition of the Self-Destruct Sequence podcast.
And I'm Mortified. Thank you very much for joining us. It is Saturday, April 2nd, and this is episode 20.
And we survived 20.
We're going to have a little bit of trouble next week.
Uh-oh.
I have no more digits. I have removed my shoes. I have counted everything on my fingers and my toes.
I am not even touching that. We do have a little bit of news this week, starting with Descent Underground. Descent Underground recently released its Beholder patch, patch 2045, and it got a lot of stuff in this one. Some good, some I don't know, but we'll go through it real quick. They added a new map called Skylab. Apparently, this is a Hot Rocks map. I haven't seen it yet. I think they had it on the Proving Grounds not too long ago. But more new content, that's definitely welcome. They have a new match browser system, which is definitely a welcome addition. So you can put up a match now, and other people can see that this match is going on, and click to specifically join your match, as opposed to just, let me just drop myself into a queue and hope I get the match I want. No, you can go right into the match you want now, which is pretty cool. And they have finally added the smart missile into the game. And I actually got a chance to see. I don't know if you're familiar with the pilot Angry Peas. He's the guy that does all the comics for them with Drillsy the Drill Drone, and he's a pretty cool guy. He's a little how to put this nicely, a little cuckoo. But he's funny.
A little unhinged.
He's and it's hilarious. He's a very entertaining individual. And he was playing, and I saw him using the smart missile. He was using it like just a dumbfire. He's hitting the bot straight on, so I never got a chance to see the bloblets or anything. He's just blowing them up right away with the smart missile. So that's definitely a welcome addition, though. Smart missile is definitely an iconic Descent weapon. It's in all three of the original games, and it's good to see it in this one. We have security keys, which initially sounds good because Descent 1 and 2 and a couple of levels in Descent 3 also had security keys. A minor problem with this. They're adding it to multiplayer. So you're going to start in multiplayer, and there's going to be some doors locked. And the only way you unlock those doors is by destroying other ships, and they'll drop security keys. I can easily...
How do you get the security keys in the first
No,
place?
they just drop. They just straight up drop as a power-up from a ship, even if they weren't carrying one. I'm thinking, what's going to happen if you get people stuck in separate rooms with doors? I don't know how they're doing it. Is the thing. If it's on a map like Valor, it's bad. You have two doors. Actually, no, I think there's 4 doors on Valor. I could see those 2 doors that connect the 2 rooms. Those could be locked because you can still get around them other ways. But if you lock those 2 doors that connect the back hallway, that's bad. Same thing with I can't think of the name of the big map. It's a Capture the Core map, and there's a couple of doors that hide power-ups behind them. But that's all that room is. It's just a room with power-ups in it. It's very small, 1x1 cube. Those doors are okay to lock. The doors that you use to get into the big area, not okay to lock. So hopefully these guys are aware of this and doing this correctly, and not doing this as a way to, look what we added. We added security keys. Security keys are going to be a great addition to the single-player game when they do put it out. But yeah, Lothar saying it just becomes another power multiplier. What happens if someone gets the first 2 kills and they can get around the level faster and you can't? There's definitely some negative sides to it. I'm not a fan of that. I definitely think that those should be limited to, and look at how Descent 1, 2, and 3 handled it. You have all the keys as soon as you spawn. It seems reasonable to me. So anyway,
the next question I would have about that is, aren't we a little bit past security keys as a game element anymore? I mean, that seems something that was very useful for encouraging progressing through a Doom level or through a Descent level, but When's the last time that you had played a game that had, red, blue, and yellow key cards to get through different parts of the area?
Sub-level 0.
And that's an element that works comfortably there.
It does. It does, definitely. But still, I mean, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. We've definitely improved in technology as to what we can do. It doesn't necessarily have to be security keys. Even Descent 3 had better methods of progressing. In fact, there was one place where you had to. There was a puzzle that you had to fly around these columns in a specific pattern in order to get by that puzzle. So
I mean, we remember the whole got to shoot a guided missile around the level in Descent 2 to hit a particular access panel.
God, I hated that so much. There was one guided missile. I think it was on like level 8 or 12 or something, and you had to shoot it through like 2 grates that had these like really tiny openings that if you were like 1 pixel off left or right, you weren't getting it through. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some frustrating elements, but I don't think security keys is necessarily one of them in a single player game. In a multiplayer game, I think it works a lot less well than it would in single player. So I do hope that they keep the element and add some more, like Descent 3 did, but keeping in mind what it's going to do to the multiplayer game in terms of balance. So they've also added an invulnerability orb. That'll get disabled by the community when we can do that, I'm sure. Not a very popular power-up at all in the multiplayer scene. One of the big things they added was a couple additional virtual reality enhancements for the Oculus Rift. They upgraded the SDK a bit. This means that if you're an Oculus Rift player, you're going to need to update your Oculus Rift to the latest runtime and make sure that you enable unknown sources from the default Oculus Store settings. I'm sure you can find more information about that over at descendantstudios.com. They also did a couple tweaks to the Shaman's repair. They realized the repair's too fast. We're going to slow it down a bit. So for team games, Shaman will not be able to repair friendly ships as fast as it did, but still is going to be able to repair. They tweaked the flares a bit, made them a bit brighter and a bit faster, and added some other bug fixes. But other than that, 2045, it sounds like they've got some interesting stuff in this patch. A lot of good stuff. Definitely check it out. I did get a chance to play this. I think I mentioned not this past week, but the week before, and it's fun to fly around with friends for sure. I'm not quite to the point where I want to play the game competitively yet. I still think it's got a ways to go until it hits that, but to me, it's a lot more entertaining than it was at the beginning. There's more variety with the weapons than there was, and stuff like that. It's got some improvement to go, but it's an okay game now. And of course, this is still early access. They've got a lot of things to add yet. So, moving on from that, we do have some sad news to report. Mike Vitelli, aka Decentile, had passed away this past week. Now, I understand that he was involved not just in Descent, but also a Forsaken community back in the 90s. It had a lot to do with... I lost the name of the...
There's the founder of the Tri-State Gaming
Game
Crib,
yes.
And was instrumental in a lot of the big LAN parties in that era of Descent. D-Fest, I believe they were called. I was somewhere around 12, 13 years old at the time, so wasn't aware of what was going on then, and didn't have the opportunity to meet him personally or even on Cali, but he definitely left a big impact on the community. He was very well liked, and was outside of Descent, was also supposed to be a pretty sharp fella who I believe he was working at Columbia University in their IT department, not certain. But in and out of the game, he was very well liked and a very community-oriented person, regardless of the community he was part of. And there was quite an expression of grief upon the news of his passing. So,
Yes.
My sympathies and condolences to those who were touched by this. Sounds like a legend in the dissent community.
Yes, and also it's not a good week for Descent fans. We also lost Jupiter CO, and Lothar's pointing out that he was he's someone who hosted some West Coast lands in Portland not too long ago, and so yeah, definitely our condolences to them, their families, and I know they both left a lasting impression on a lot of people. Um, yeah, sad day indeed. So we're going to go ahead and move on from that. We've got some information on the Descent Rangers, of course. They did the Stadium Egg Hunt CTF today. I think they were still playing. I saw them in Laser Death, of all places. Still playing their CTF maps. They started off in Stadium. They've been moving around, so definitely check them out. They're doing these fairly regularly. The next one is 3 weeks off. This is going to be Descent 2 Horde in Keg Party Omega Edition, which means that it's the only primary weapon that's going to be available is the Omega cannon, which that thing can be a little powerful when used correctly. It should be pretty interesting to see. That's going to be on Saturday, the 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. So check that out. DescentRangers.com. That's where you want to go if you want to get more information on that and the other events they have scheduled for the remainder of the year. And it's pretty fun to be involved with that. I haven't been awake enough to join the last few, but this in addition to Sirius's co-op event that he does. The Rangers are pretty active, with several events a month, so definitely check them out. And they've also been playing during the week too. I've noticed that there's been Rangers games a lot lately. I don't know if I think Skywarp is like a main factor behind that. I've seen Big Rat in a few games.
Big Rat has been picking up activity as well.
Absolutely. So, Rangers still going strong. Check them out. And then, of course, last night we had the latest edition of the Observatory. We called this one Legends, and with it being April 1st, I decided to have a little fun with it. So we had a couple people flying around under aliases. And, of course, the main stat to report out of the Observatory was Team Reactor came out ahead over Team Proxy, winning 3-1. All of those coming in the final game. We'll get to that in a second.
It should be pretty significant to note here that not all levels that were played tonight had reactors that could fire upon opponents. So
correct. There's only one map, and even then there was a reactor in there, or 2 maps, because there's Flea too. Flea doesn't have a reactor. So anyway, getting to the results, of course, our first match was Xevious, played by our friend Mark392, which that's what we're going to call him now. And he prevailed over Skunk, who was flying under Ahimsa, but that was actually serious. That was played in Eris with Xevious winning that 20-14. Then we had Jedi Luke playing as Dr. Don, prevailing over Dracona playing as Syrian 20-13 and Athena. The banter back and forth between those two was absolutely hilarious. I had such a good time watching that match. It was funny. And then the third one, this one was kind of close with how do you even pronounce this name, by the way?
Some people would say Kufiat, some people say Cufiat. It was a nonsensical name that was vomited on the keyboard. Not entirely dissimilar to my name, which was vomited on the keyboard.
But we had Kufiat being played by Morphod with a comeback victory, 23-21 over Cool Bear being played by P-Funk in Flea X4. I tell you what, he was game. I was amazed at how that was going.
He approached me beforehand, tried to figure out what level we wanted to play, and he wanted to do something that was going to be fast-paced for the observatory, especially because we were going to have a late start time. I didn't want to keep things bogged down. So he said Flea X4. I said Flea X5. Maybe he forgot the X5. I don't know. But it was his suggestion, and since it was an exhibition, this wasn't a DCL,
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and hooked up the joystick to try to uh, emulate the impressive flying that Kufi used to do. But I only ever saw 2 or 3 examples of it, so I was just kind of making it up as I went.
So you can yell at Scion later because he commented that it doesn't look like he's using a joystick. I think he's got his mouse plugged in.
I wanted to play UG, but it, I think that PFUG was not necessarily doing an homage to the way that Cool Bear played, but rather what Cool Bear did for the community and how cool it would be if he was playing around with us today.
Yes.
So, but regardless, I would have loved to do. I would have loved to do UG, of course. Kufiat being the inspiration of it. I guess there was a discussion with Syrian, and Syrian said, "Well, what level are we going to play?" And Kufiat wasn't going to have any part of that. He just said, "Ugh." So what did Syrian do? Having
created
the
a
humor
level.
that he does, he goes and builds the level UG.
Nice. Oh, that's hilarious. All right.
All right.
Kufiat-
And
Kufiat just
if I
seems to
recall
be-
correctly, the original UG did not have any fusion in it.
Really?
It was just level 1. It was just a ugly gray box with level 1 lasers,
Well, I'm
and
glad
then
Fusion got
later
added,
on
but-
they added in the fusion cannons.
Nice.
But anyway, it was a pleasant time of it, and I tried to stay true to being the fusion whore that he was by
Yes.
using it for 95% of my flight.
Oh yes, and that was that was definitely a fun match. I thought that P-Funk Cool Bear had won it at one point when it was 1918, and he looked like that he had the jump on you, and somehow you pulled off that he has to dodge everything in the air and managed to tie it up. So, well, not tie it up. He brought it within 20-19, and then
Yeah,
he
it
got
was
another.
Got it by 2.
Yeah, he got another point on you, game point on you, and then you got 3 in a row, and it's crazy. So yeah, and then the stompiest game of the night turned out to have the biggest highlight of the night, I thought. And this was in Ecstasy with Furno taking out Seaworm 20-7. There were a ton of suicides, and we played some additional games afterwards, just to add some stuff on, give the show a little more meat. And the highlight came when Furno was camping in the main room in the corner, up above the door that comes from the reactor room, and Seaworm is in the reactor room. He opens the door, and he tosses this smart missile. And this must have been some kind of god smart missile or something, because this thing literally hit the corner of the door and blew up on the corner of the door, and the smart blobs just went straight into Furno's ship. It was just like, how do you aim something like that any better than that? It was impressive. So despite falling in that game, Furno definitely outplayed Seaworm. And I think one of Seaworm's biggest faults that game was that he didn't change his style enough. He kept being predictable, and Furno took big advantage of that. And Seaworm tried some suicide tactics, but it didn't work. 20-7 was the final. And then this, I thought, was the upset of the night. Zero taking out Bahamut in Black Rose, 20-14. Did you see part of that game at all, or any of that game?
I got to see bits and pieces of it, and it really seemed as if Bahamut was forcing fusion at the beginning of the match, which is very difficult to. Both the Zero and Bahamut are excellent fusion pilots with their own styles on top of it. Both of them really like Black Rose, but I would have to put the edge toward Zero going into that game because Zero has a better spread fire than Bahamut. And the spread fire is a very important element to Black Rose. But yeah, Zero had a much stronger start, even though the score was the same, very close, 5-4, 5-5, and stuff like that. Zero was definitely showing a stronger presence, whereas Bahamut was really, it almost felt like he was just throwing fusion until it stuck.
That's what it felt like to me too, and I mean that's your style. That's your style, and it got him 14 points, which isn't bad.
With all the suicides that he attempted, I think there was 3 or 4 just to try to bring the game back into contention. But
yeah, and there were 2 really nice kills in that game as well. the first one, Bahamut was chasing Zero down that blue hallway into the main room, and instead of just flying in the main room, Zero does this maneuver where he just enters the room, stops, and then just kind of like turns up and faces back towards the entrance. Bahamut, none the wiser, comes to the room, looks around for him, and gets plastered by plasma from the ceiling. It was beautiful. And then there was another one, where the spread fire is. There's 2 hallways there that lead into the main room. They both come through the door at the same time, and Zero was behind him and ended up getting the plasma kill. Both of those kills were pretty sweet.
So the game did end at a very curious note. Bahamut was hiding behind one of the pillars near the exit door, and after doing a couple suicide runs there, finally types out, it's like, "This is the end, isn't it?" or something similar to that effect.
And then they have one final fight, and he couldn't get away from the smart, and Zero's like, "Yep." So 0-20 to 14.
So from call to answer, probably only 15 seconds passed.
Yeah, if that. It was amusing to say the least. So yeah, we're hoping to have the next one. I'm hoping to do it next on the 22nd. Right now, I've been thinking about it. As much as I'd like to do it every 2 weeks, I'm not going to have an open Friday next week, and I'd like to have an open Friday sometime soon. So. We'll do the next one on the 22nd. I'll get more information out as we go. So yeah, that's the observatory, and on to the DCL.
On to the DCL. We have news from the DCL.
Yes.
85 matches played this last week. It's interesting to do weekly reports now that I'm more on the ball. Anyway, 85 matches. We got gold play on gold. 24 matches total, and other than that, probably the weakest showing is silver on silver matches. Only 5 matches played in the last week. Otherwise, a pretty good showing across tiers. Bronze, plenty of action. Inner bronze, and actually another weak category, gold to bronze, also showing a very strong number of matches, 11 there. Anyhow, moving on to the bronze news. That is probably the most detailed bronze news. Bronze is probably about the most active we've got out of the 3 tiers here. We got Spud sitting at top bronze, but did he earn it, or did he just kind of have it left to him? He's 1-1 versus bronze this week with a 2017 win over Furno in Flea, but he's got top bronze, and no one's going to be able to deny him that until they go over his head, or they get promoted. But more on that later. We got Fyrix showing up for 4 matches with a top score of a high game of 20-15 against Puddles in Ascend, who also made an appearance this week. Big news for bronze: Big Rat has placed in Big Bronze after being unranked for a short bit. He's been away from the ladder long enough that I believe it's in excess of 90 days without a match, and you come back and play, you are put back into the unranked pool to be reevaluated, and he is back solidly at the top of bronze there. He's played 10 matches this past week and was 1-1 against other bronze pilots with a high score of 20-15 against Furno and Skunked, and 2 excellent scores against P-Funk, 16-20 in Lurk, 16-20 in Crimson. So he's already starting to poke the bottom of silver there.
And that is no surprise.
Big Rat previously being a silver pilot. Who else do we have playing this? We have Furno. Furno making quite a bit of noise, not necessarily in results, but definitely in wins, but definitely in results. Has played 7 matches, is 2-3 against bronze pilots, and has an overtime win 21-19 against Big Rat in Vamped, and has returned the favor. You mentioned that match from last night in Ecstasy, 20-7. He held another bronze pilot, an established bronze pilot, to 10 points or less, returning the favor that Seaworm granted to him the previous week with a 20-9 game in, Fish Barrel?
Fish Barrel, yep.
And Furno has also picked up a dark horse this week, 2017 against P-Funk in Ecstasy. We'll see if Furno can pull that success outside of that level, which he has.
I also want to talk a little more on Furno, because Furno has dramatically picked up his game in the past couple weeks. Look at some of the other games that you did not mention. 22-20 loss in overtime to Lady Silver. 20-17 loss to Spud and Flea. These are solid scores against top bronze pilots. And getting that dark horse, I mean, he put up 15 on the in Ecstasy. He flew that level blind at the time. And he loved it so much, he's been playing the heck out of it lately. So yeah, I mean, this has become Furno's become a pretty scary bronze pilot to play now.
And rounding out the rest of bronze news here, we have they have the Kiwis play, and we have SDF Jeff and PP Sky playing on land. Played 3 additional games, all 3 close. That's a 21-19. All 3 were wins for SDF Jeff. It's 21-19 game in Pillbox, 20-17 game in Optimus, and a 22-20 overtime win in Zenith.
And these 3 always play close, and it always seems like SDF Jeff is the victor in most of them. It's uncanny.
Yeah, but it's win by 2 in overtime, win by 2 in overtime. Win by 3 in regulation time. And it just, how long can you sit on a volcano?
Pretty much.
And we have Static showing up for 4 matches this past week with a overtime win, 21-19 over Can I Play Dead in Vamped. We have probably the biggest news piece for bronze this week is Lady Silver. Playing 13 matches as bronze. Is a 2-0 record against bronze, including a 24-22 overtime win against Spud and Logic. That's going to secure the number 1 spot there. And a 22-20 overtime win against Furno in Lurk. Against Silver, she has been 2-3 with a notably high game of 22-24, an overtime loss against Vaniac in Logic. And has also had a couple of very interesting scores against a gold pilot. 14-20 against Morphod in Vamped and 16-20 against Morphod in Flea. I don't know what the heck this guy thinks he's doing in gold, but if he's letting bronze players drop 15 or more on him consistently is the key here.
Yikes.
Then maybe he ought to go have his thrusters checked.
Right?
But yes, big news from last week was Lady Silver starting her promotion challenge. She has since completed the promotion challenge. Last week doing a 13-20 game against Vaniac and Mind Tricks, and has added to that a 13-20 game against Melvin and Vamped, a 20-17 win over Ronkley and Flea for a dark horse, a 13-20 game against Mo and Logic, and a 22-20 victory over Watts, which technically counts as a dark horse in Ascend. Finishing out the series with a +12. Not only did she make silver, she made it without a doubt. So blowing out expectations there and picking up a couple of good wins. Welcome to Silver, Lady Silver. Now will she change her name to Lady Gold?
Yes, congratulations. Definitely well earned. Definitely a much more solid performance than the last one. I think Nerves got to her last one as well as a bad draw.
Playing 0 for that first match.
Not just playing
right
0.
Before he...
Not just playing 0, but playing 0 in Black Rose.
Yeah.
Ouch.
And I think I also mentioned that Rooster61 is out on injury. So hopefully he got a little bit of trigger finger there, and hopefully that gets itself sorted out, and he can get his equipment modified so that he'll be able to prevent aggravation of that in the future. And on to Silver we go. Let's see here. We got, okay, let's face it. The past, 2 months, it seems that the top of Silver has really been talking about who's on top this week, War Master or Vaniac. And I got to say, it's a lot of fun to see these two guys go at each other. We got War Master popping in for only 3 matches this week and is 1-1 against Silver Pilots. But hey, that was his trading series with Vaniac. The 2018 win over Vaniac and Athena. And of course, he played Soldier, one of his favorite sparring partners, in an excellent game 16-20 in Nocturnal. Vaniac putting in 15 matches this week, is 2-1 against Silver, with a notable win of 20-17 over War Master. In the level Untitled, Maniac sits at top Silver. And on top of that, Maniac is also had a couple of good games against Gold, including an 18-20 game against Morphod in Savage, and a 17-20 game against Bahamut in Vamped. Excuse me for a moment.
Just a matter of time for Vaniac, I think, before he starts knocking on the door.
It should be noted that the people that he's doing well against, same with War Master. When they're putting up good scores against Gold Pilots, they're playing against the Gold Pilots that really are willing to dogfight, and the Gold Pilots, they're getting burned. They're getting burned. It's so beautiful. They want to come to the light, but you can't do that against War Master. You can't do that against Vaniac without really getting hurt. And if the Gold Pilots want to maintain Gold style scores against these Silver Pilots, they're going to have to acknowledge that their dogfighting is not up to par to deliver that kind of performance. Start forcing War Master and Vaniac to start playing in different ways, rather than obliging them by going in for a boxing match in the center of the level every time. Moving on, we got Melvin playing 6 matches this week. And then, on top of that, he's getting, just like the rest of these guys, a couple of good scores against Gold Pilots. That's 18-20 against Morph in Take 2, but of course that's Take 2, and against Morph, you pretty much flip a coin to see who wins those games. And a 17-20 performance against Bahamut in EO. I was very surprised to see that. Bahamut's been hot and cold the past week or two, but EO is the type of domination level that works very well for fusion pilots like Bahamut, and for Melvin to be able to exploit that, probably due to his excellent spread fire. Melvin has, since the beginning of the season, done some pretty impressive things with his spread fire. That weapon, only one spread fire in the level. If you can play King of the Hill with the weapons, as long as you are proficient in Vulcan, fusion, or spread fire, you can make a game in EO. So excellent work by Melvin there. And another player to mention, Watts, with 5 matches this week, 2-1 against Silver Pilots, including 2 wins for trophies. We always like to mention the trophies. We got a dogfight trophy, 20-9 win over Lady Silver in Killbox, which also earns the distinction of holding a Silver Pilot to 10 points or less. And for the Fusion Trophy, 20-14 against Lady Silver in UGG.
I have to say, that's for Lady Silver, that is a above average performance for her. She is self-admittedly weak with the Fusion, and I've held her to less than that. And putting up 14 against somebody who traditionally is a fairly good Fusion pilot like Watts, that's no joke. That's a good score.
I would argue that she's been much more bold about using it lately.
Yes, she has. I've noticed that. It's scary.
Eventually, when you fire this big fat gun down a hallway enough times, you're going to hit something. Anyway, that's going to wrap up Silver News for this week. Keep it exciting, War Master, Vaniac, and Melvin, would you please play other Silver Pilots? Same with Mo. Mo has a reasonable excuse, though. The hours that he's been getting on, there's not a lot of other Silver Pilots to play. We'd also like to see a little bit more action out of the likes of Kaina. But anyhow, on to Gold News. We have a couple people who may have done pretty good this week. I'm not certain. Bahamut, playing 12 matches, is 1-3 against Gold Pilots that are not Blue Orb, but has a couple of good scores against Blue Orb Pilots, 17-20 against Jedi Luke in Wrath X5, and 17-20 against Jedi Luke in Logic X2. We have Morphod playing 15 matches. Total is 1-1 against Gold Pilots that are not Blue Orb, 20-16 against Bahamut in Audacity, and getting blown out by another pilot that we'll mention later. And a good score against Blue Orb pilot Jedi Luke, 15-20 in Lurk, but to be noted that is his home level and has a distinctive advantage there. Soldier playing 6 matches, is 2-0 against Gold Pilots this week with a high game of 24-22 against Bahamut in Nysa. That would have been a scorcher. Has managed to hold a fellow Gold Pilot to 10 points or less. That's once against Morphod. Something about 12 suicides in Nocturnal.
What are you doing?
I trying to bring the game back into contention, but he wasn't having any of it.
But you were under 8 points.
I forget the rules sometimes. And managing to hold a Silver Pilot to 5 points or less. That's once against Vaniac. We have Dracona playing 12 matches this past week. 11 of those matches against Blue Orb Pilots. Just wanting a hurting, apparently. But 2 good scores out of those 12 matches. That's a 16-20 game against Jedi Luke in Logic X4 and 17-20 against Jedi Luke in Ascend X4, both for the X4 trophy. Close, but no cigar. Sirius showing up for 1 match this week and is 1-0 against Gold. And Cyrus, I guess he's unretired and he's played 3 matches and he still stinks.
Ouch.
No, Cyrus has been retiring and unretiring, and doesn't have any particular notable matches other than just say he's unretired. And I hope that he stays that way, sincerely. Don't really like retirement yo-yoers. Makes it hard to report.
Yes.
And onto our Blue Orb Pilots. We have Jedi Luke playing 19 matches, is 16-1 against Gold Pilots this week, has defended the X4 trophy no less than 9 times, has held Gold Pilots to 10 points or less, done it to Dracona 3 times, and has held Silver Pilots to 5 points or less, done it once to Vaniac, and the very difficult to achieve, holding a Gold Pilot to 5 points or less, has done it once against Morphod. That was in response to being a little bit uppity in the previous game of Lurk. And finally, Mark 39.2, excuse me. Just gotta keep consistency here.
Yes.
Still sitting at the number 1 spot. Top Gold has played 9 matches this week and is 4-0 against Gold Pilots. Game of the week, I would have to say, is that 20-18 over Jedi Luke and Athena X2.
Can't deny it when you got the top 2 playing. And
you got the top 2
close.
playing. The top 2 playing close. Top 2 playing close with exchanging leads, and playing in a classic map like Athena. That's going to be match of the week, and it's going to be pretty hard to argue otherwise. Other achievements: holding Gold Pilots to 10 points or less twice against Dracona, and holding Silver Pilots to 5 points or less once against Viniac, and once against the newly minted Lady Silver. And that pretty much does it for Gold news and news on the ladder as an overall. So your big takeaways: that 2018 match, Mark 39-2 over Jedi Luke in Athena X2. Lady Silver has made it into Silver, and will probably need to change her name since. Big Rat has back into bronze and is making plenty of noise. And lots of other pilots doing very well otherwise. That's all I got for TCL.
I think that's going to wrap it up.
Is it going to wrap it up?
It is.
Well, folks, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or confessions, we'd love to hear from you. Why don't you drop us an email at emails@selfdestructsequence.org. Be certain to note whether or not you want to be explicitly named or remain anonymous while we make fun of you on the air. Other contact info: you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitch, SDS Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at SDS_activated, or all of this information can be found at selfdestructsequence.org.
And we're going to be coming at you every Saturday afternoon at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. You can check us out over on iTunes, where you can subscribe to the podcast. Be sure to give us a rating, drop a review. That's the best thing you can do to help us out on iTunes. If you're wanting to get back into the game, if you want to figure out just how good we've gotten, you can check us out over at descentchampions.org/new_player.php. That will give you all the information that you need to get up and running in the modern game of Descent. And be sure to watch Facebook and Twitter for our next stream. Mark, I promise you I'm going to get those episodes this week. You'll see them. Trust me. And until next week, we'll see you then.